Okay, Chevra, second shiur in Yayin Nessach. Here we go. Okay, so before we get into all the technical cases, and last shiur we had what seemed to be chumras, that Yayin Mevushal wasn't as pashut as we might have assumed. This shiur is going to be kulas compared to what we all think. We'll be very surprised to figure out and to find out that some of those times that we thought the wine was gone, it was done, really, it's all good, and you'll see soon. Now, we're going to define goyim. Not all goyim were created equal. And we're going to define the people that negatively affect our yayin into three categories. The most chomer category is a category 1. We'll call it an oived avodah zarah. This includes the Buddhist, it includes the Hindus, it includes a lot of these small religions in Africa, in Asia, and some in China, that's Asia, I guess, and all those places that a lot of those places, I should say, not all of them, that have all these small, foreign to us religions. So a lot of those are going to be problematic. A lot of those are Oived Avodah Zarah. Now, we usually don't have so much to do with that chevra. They don't have so much interaction with us in our regular life. But Lamaisa, they're almost half the world. So it really is a significant portion of the world, but it's not the chevra that we normally hang out with. Who's the chevra that we normally hang out with? So the chevra that we normally hang out with, unfortunately, I don't know, unfortunately, but in America, the biggest players are Christianity. So that's going to be a category 2, we'll call it. Now, is Christianity considered avodah zarah? That's going to be a very important question, because once again, there were two concerns when it came to Yayin Nessach. The two concerns was, number one is Mishum B'nai Seim. That certainly applies. The other concern is the concern of whether they're going to use the wine and use it to be to serve avodah zarah. Now, if they don't believe in avodah zarah, it's not a very big concern, and therefore there's more room to be mekel. So what's the story with Christianity? So l'maisa, I'm not going to answer it today because it's a mechalel Rishonim. There's a mechalel Rishonim how to treat Christianity. Do we treat it like avodah zarah or not avodah zarah? Some say yes, some say no. Others say it actually depends on the sect of Christianity. Now, I am not a bucky in the difference between a Protestant and a Catholic and a Seventh-day Evangelicist, and I don't know what else there is. I did not learn that sugya being. But there is that tzad to say it depends. They have varying beliefs, and those varying beliefs could create a difference in din. Just because what they believe in is apikarsis doesn't mean that it is a din avodah zarah. So it depends how they view these different entities to determine whether it's considered avodah zarah. Since we'll call it a suffix avodah zarah, therefore we'll call it a level 2, category 2 type of guy. And then there's the third category, which is going to be more mekel than the first two. And these are goyim that aren't oived avodah zarah. Now, the two main groups of goyim that aren't oived avodah zarah are, number one, the Arabs. The Arabs believe in Hashem. They might believe that Muhammad was a Navi. They don't believe that he was a God. And therefore, who do they believe in? They believe in Allah, Hashem. And therefore, that is not called avodah zarah. And the atheists, the people that don't believe in any Hashem. So if you don't believe in any Hashem, you don't believe in any supernatural entity, surely you don't believe in avodah zarah, and there's no chashash that you did any pouring of the wine to avodah zarah. Now, intermarriage still applies. So let's see how this affects our halachas. And there's a big category which we didn't discuss yet. You might be noticing that I didn't mention. And let's just get involved in that right now. In halacha, especially the Suri D'Rabbanan of Achila, we treat a mummer like a guy. We're not saying that the mummer who's a yid is a guy, but we will treat him in halacha like a guy. Now, what about in this scenario? Is there really any issues? Do we have what to worry about by a mummer? The chayra, there's nothing to worry about. What's the problem? Think about it. The mummer, he is number one. He's not Oved Avodah Zarah. Very rarely do you have a guy going off who actually goes to be Oved Avodah Zarah. And if he would fit into that, yeah, that would be a bigger issue. But that's not generally the case. And secondly, intermarriage. Is there an issue of intermarriage? No, he's a yid. A yid, assumingly his kids are yidden. And therefore, even though it's not always true, but we're talking about it for, at least now, the case where his children are Jewish, and therefore there's no issue of intermarriage. So if there's no issue of Avodah Zarah, and there's no issue of intermarriage, surely it should be fine. Shulchan Aruch, Kuf Chof Daled, Sif Katan Beis, and Yardei, obviously, that it's us. The wine of a mummer is aser. So, even though my svara might have said that it should be fine, the Ma'aseh Shulchan Aruch paskins that it's aser. Where does the Shulchan Aruch get this from? So Shulchan Aruch actually gets it from a Gemara in Chulin, because there's a Gemara in Chulin that says Achav asered the wine. Achav was the mummer, a yid who was a mummer, and you see a yid who's a mummer could aser the wine. So that's where the Shulchan Aruch was coming from in paskening that a mummer creates stam Yaynom. Okay. What about a Mechalel Shabbos b'far Hesia? How do we treat a Mechalel Shabbos b'far Hesia? Do we treat a Mechalel Shabbos b'far Hesia like a mummer, and therefore say the Mechalel Shabbos will aser the yayan? Or do we say that no, that's only by a mummer, somebody who goes against Hashem? He's attacking the belief in Hashem. He's going against. No, I will not do this. But when Mechalel Shabbos for Hesi, why does he mean Mechalel Shabbos? It's inconvenient for him Shabbos, so he's Mechalel Shabbos, but not because he's a mummer per se. How do we treat a Mechalel Shabbos for Hesi? So. And once again, we're talking right now, just to be clear, somebody who knows what Shabbos is. The Shiur of Tinik Shenishba, we're going to get to very soon. But right now I'm talking about a guy who knows what Shabbos is, but he decides not to keep it. Bifar Hesia. Does he aser the wine? So, the Tzitz Eliezer says it's a problem. The Chassam Sofer says it's a problem. Ramoshe Feinstein says, Me'ikir Hadin, it's okay. But the minhag is to be machmir and treat the Mechalel Shabbos as a problem and treat the wine as a problem. So l'maisa, we are machmir. Now, what is a Mechalel Shabbos? What type of Mechalel Shabbos are we referring to? This Mechalel Shabbos. So there's actually a Mishnah Brura in Shin Pei Hey Sivkat and Vav that says that somebody who would be embarrassed to be Mechalel Shabbos in front of an Adam Chashuv doesn't have the din of a Mechalel Shabbos b'far Hesia. So let's let it digest for a second. You have this guy, his Mechalel Shabbos is on his phone in the street. But what if, let's comment, what if Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef was walking by the street the opposite way, and he would see in the distance Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef was walking by? Would he hide his phone and put it away not to be Mechalel Shabbos in front of Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef? If so, l'fi the Mishnah Brura, if he's embarrassed to be Mechalel Shabbos in front of an Adam Chashiv, then he does not have the din of a Mechalel Shabbos b'far Hesia. I had a shayla, which I tried to look up. I didn't find anybody discussing this. I would maybe argue in the example that I just gave, some people will be embarrassed, but there are other people that it wouldn't be that they're embarrassed. They're not embarrassed about being Mechalel Shabbos, but l'chvod harav. They want to give kavod to Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef. Or the guy who had that Rebbe that really tried to help him out. The Rebbe that he liked, not the other Rebbe that helped him get off the derech. I'm talking about the Rebbe that he really liked. So he's not going to be Mechalel Shabbos in front of that Rebbe, not because he's embarrassed. Because he wants to show him kavod, he wants to show him respect. Would that be the same thing? And I do not know the answer. My netiya is that the Mishnah Berurah didn't spell out a differentiation. I'm assuming that that's included in the case of a non-Mechalel Shabbos. However, I am really not certain about that. I'd be scared to paskin that way without hearing from Adam Gadol if that was actually the psak. Okay, now, Lefi that Mishnah Berurah, there's a lot of people that we just converted into non-Mechalel Shabbos for Hesia. I think the majority of Sfardim in Eretz Yisrael would not be Mechalel Shabbos in front of Rav Yitzchak Yosef. I think the high majority of Sfardim would not be Mechalel Shabbos in front of Rav Yitzchak Yosef. So that would work out to be a tremendous kula based on the Mishnah Berurah. Rav Moshe Sternbach says we don't rely on this Mishnah Berurah, which is interestingly enough. We generally do rely on the Mishnah Berurah, but interestingly enough, Rav Moshe Sternbach says we do not rely on this Mishnah Berurah. Okay, what about a Tinuk Shenishba? So by Tinuk Shenishba, the Chazanish is Mekel, and Rav Moshe is machmir. And let's also point out that getting even being called a Tinuk Shenishba is a whole discussion of who qualifies, so to speak. Does your average non-frum Jew from who knows where qualify as a Tinuk Shenishba? So that could really be a whole shiur in its own right. But in short, here's how it goes. Believe it or not, Rav Moshe is not very quick to be mekel. The Chazanish was quick to be mekel. Now, Rav Elyashiv said there's no such thing as a Tinuk Shenishba in Yerushalayim. If you're in a kibbutz, maybe there could be. If you're in Yerushalayim, there's no Tinuk Shenishba because you see what a yid is. You see what a frum yid is. You have the chiyuv to go look out, go investigate, go see if this is real. I can't say this with vadoyas, but I would assume that in the year 2023, in the Goyish years, that anybody who knows that he is certainly a Jew, you could really apply that chiddush of Rav Elyashiv. Why? Because anybody that knows that he's a Jew knows how to go into Google and say, what's the story with those religious Jews? Why should somebody be a religious Jew? And we'll come up, H.com or something, and they could start reading up. The information's at their fingertips. And being that the information's at their fingertips, perhaps the rule of Rav Elyashiv that there's no such thing as a Tinuk Shenishba in Yerushalayim might extend to the whole world. But that is debatable. Okay. So Lamaisa, what's the minhag? The minhag that we're noyig is that we treat anybody not religious as somebody that could passel our wine. So we're machmir for everybody in this respect. However, you always have to know when you're being machmir and when it's mi'ikar hadin. So it's good to know. This Tinuk Shenishba, clear cut Tinuk Shenishba might be a chumrah, might not be mi'ikar hadin. That's really a machlokes whether it's a chumrah or mi'ikar hadin. L'maisa, that's how we're noyig. So at the end of the day, the non-frum Jew, whichever type, is going to be in the third category, the same category as the Arabs and as the atheists. Not saying they're the same, not equating them, but their halacha in regards to touching wine will be the same. Okay. Now, I was a little bothered by this because, come on! We have to use our seichel in these halachas. The Gemara gives us the tam. The Gemara tells us the reason. The Gemara tells us the issue is intermarriage, and the issue is avodah zarah. If these non-frum Jews don't have the issue of intermarriage, don't have the issue of avodah zarah, come on, what's the problem? Why are we being so machmir? So I was thinking, with a very simple explanation. We know from Yidden keep away from Goyim. We have halachas and ashkafas. We don't follow their ways. We stay far away. And that's really what's kept us our existence throughout the ages. They wouldn't just disappear into these bigger nations. We kept their Jewish identity, and this was the key factor. Now, the non-frum Jews don't have that same sensitivity. They have connection to the Goyim. So maybe it's just a two-step process. If we go drink the wine of the non-frum Jew, we'll come to be next to the Goyim. And then we'll come to drink the wine of the Goyim. So it's just to protect us from a two-step process. That's not saying that Kiruv should not be done. But maybe Kiruv should not be done at the non-frum Jews' party. Maybe the non-frum Jews should come to the frum house for the Kiruv. And that way there'd be no issue. And once again, handle your bottle accordingly, as we're going to see very soon. Okay, now, what type of moving creates Yayin Nessach? So until now, I ran a little survey the other day. It seems like that, and guys, you agree? I think the Olam agrees. Is going to agree. I didn't even say anything yet. That when you go and pick up a bottle that is corked, meaning, sorry, I should say, be more clear. The cork was taken out, and then the cork was put back in, and a guy picks up the bottle. Game over? Spill it out? What do you guys think? Yeah? No? Well, guess what? According to everybody, all the poskim, all the Rishonim, everybody, if the bottle is closed, there is no Yayin Nessach, or I should say stam yayan more accurately, issue. There's no stam yayan an issue. There's no maga goy akum issue, because the bottle is closed. They could only do the pouring on an open bottle. On a closed bottle, there's no chashash. There's even the first category. Even that Buddha Hindu Filipino worker of yours who goes and picks up that bottle with the cork in. It is mutter gomer. You know what it is? If you spill out that bottle, you know what we call that? We call that bal tashchas. It's bal tashchas to spill out that bottle of yayin, because since it is closed, there is no issue of stam yayin. Not only closed, but even covered. What's the difference between closed and covered? Covered is, you can take a plastic cup and stick it on top, and it's covered. So let's get this clear. Not only sealed. Sealed is the cork's in, never been taken out. For sure, no problem. The cork's in, but it was taken out once, now put back in. Still, for sure, no problem. Even the cork's covered. No problem. Drink the wine, don't spill it out. It's going to be bal tashchas if you spill it out. According to my surveys, most people do not know that halacha. And I don't know why. I don't know why people don't know it. But that's the halacha. It's clear cut. It's undebatable. Now, what about this? Let's say the bottle has no cork in. Oh, so this is already scary. And this, I've seen this with my own eyes happen. The guy picks up the bottle, the waiter, and everybody from all sides, no! And grab the bottle out of his hand and put it to the side. Everybody's like, no, the guy picked up the bottle. What is the halacha with that bottle that was lifted up? It was lifted up without changing place. Meaning, or let's say the guy lifted it up to sweep under the bottle and put it right back down. So if the guy lifted the bottle and didn't move it, and he didn't shake it, he just lifted it. I'm not saying there's not going to be a little shaking back and forth, which is inadvertent. But he didn't shake it on purpose. And he just picked it up. It is mutter to drink that wine. According to everybody. What? I have a Hindu Buddhist guy who goes and picks up the open bottle. It's mutter? Yes, it's mutter. Guess what? If you never learned these halachas, you just don't know. It's mutter. What about if the guy moved the wine? Is that game over? So, If he moved the wine without intentionally shaking it once more time, even though it's gonna automatically shake a little bit, but he didn't. When he shakes it on purpose, there's a little bit more chashash. Then maybe he shaked it toward, to, so to speak, for the avodah zarah. But if he didn't shake it, he just moved it. So it depends. If it's a category 1 over avodah zarah, then the mechaber says it's aser. The mechaber says that it's aser to drink that wine, and the Ramah says it's mutter to drink that wine b'makom. It's mutter to drink the wine b'makom hefsid, which, by the way, is usually going to be the case. There's usually going to be some element of hefsid. Now, if you have a cup that has it's a quarter of a cup left, and the guy picked up the cup and moved it to a different place, maybe you might want to say, unless it's like some $300 or $500 bottle, that's not really a hefsid. We don't really care so much about a quarter cup of wine. But if he picked up the bottle of wine, which is 80% full, a nice bottle of wine, that's a hefsid, and therefore don't give it to the Sephardi. But l'fi the Ramah, l'chayra, you could drink that bottle. Now, remember Kiva Eger, Dagam Rava, the Chazon Ish all say we follow this, and it's not a surprise that we follow this. Now, a category 2 Christian who goes and does the same thing, a classical waiter in America that picks up the bottle, moves it off the main table to the head table, wherever it is, because they're taking off the tablecloth of that table. What is the halacha in such a scenario? So guess what? I'm a little uncertain to what the mechaber holds. I think the machmir in the mechaber is his mekel, but I'm not positive about that. So Svardim, please double check me on this. But I think from the way that I understood, the mechaber is mekel, and the Ramah is certainly mekel. So once again, a Christian waiter picks up your wine, open, no cap, moves it to somewhere else. You could drink that wine. I know this is not how we always understood. Now, what about the Arab that does that? Pashut, it's fine. It's pashut that we are mekel if the Arab moves the wine. Now you're thinking to me, what was the whole sugya? I thought Arabs touching wine. Yeah, if a guy sticks his finger in the wine, it doesn't make a difference whether it's a category 1 Hindu, a Christian, or category 3 Arab. That asks the wine. But touching wine is touching wine. That's where you're going to create the game over Isser. And by the way, I just want to point out again with touching wine, when it comes to Christians, the Mechaber says it's asur b'hana, and the Ramah says that it's only asur to drink. So one more time, it's a common case. Not so common. A Christian touches the wine. Mechaber says it's asur b'hana, and the Ramah says it's asur to drink that wine which was touched. By the way, fingers might not be so common, but what's more common is lips. When you drink, if the guy drinks from the cup, then the rest of the remnants of the cup have touched the guy. Now, and according to Mechaber, no ana. According to the Ramah, yes ana. But if you think about it by fine. But everybody agrees, even when the Arab drinks from the cup, everybody agrees it's also for us to drink the rest of the cup. Now, what about when the Arab pours the wine? Oh, for sure not. Everybody knows you can't do that. Agreed, you shouldn't stay away from this stuff. I'm not saying you should do this stuff. I want to more focus on b'di'evan once it happened. What's the status of the wine? So let's say the wine is poured by a guy. So the Shach explains by koichai, you always move down a shlav. What was asur b'hana is now asur to drink. What it was asur, you get it. So by a category 1 Oived Avodah Zarah who poured the wine. You have a Hindu guy who poured the wine. So it's asur to drink mutter ba'ana. Is referring to the Mechaber. The Mechaber would say, even the Mechaber would say it's mutter ba'ana, where the Oived Avodah Zarah, category 1, poured the wine. What about a Christian who poured the wine? So, according to the Shach, when a Christian pours wine, it is mutter. According to the Taz, it's asur, or machmir. The Chassam Sefer is machmir, Rav Akiva Eger is machmir. Sorry, Rav Akiva Eger is mekel, I'm sorry. L'maisa, we generally follow the Shach over the Taz. Generally when we have machlokes in Yerdei between Shach and Taz, I don't know if it's it's not an absolute rule, surely not. But generally the Shach wins. So we generally follow the Shach. So l'maisa, we can be mekel. We can be mekel if a guy poured a cup of non-frum wine. You could drink it. I know this is not like anything you ever heard before. Unless you actually heard a shiur on this before, then your days would be different. Now, there is room to be machmir. Because whenever you have a shach versus taz, even if you're going to be semich on the shach, there certainly is makom lahachmir to be makbid like the taz, but the makom hefsted you definitely could be mekel like the shach. So in the case where a Christian pours the wine, the maisa, you could be mekel, and where an Arab pours the wine, you could definitely be mekel. Could you do it lechatchila? Probably not. You probably should not do this lechatchila. But lemaisa, we could certainly be mekel, no question about it. I would say pouring out that wine is bal tashchas. And what about a semi-Mechalel Shabbos pouring? What about a semi-Mechalel Shabbos pouring the wine? Could that be allowed? The one who's not going to be Mechalel Shabbos in front of Rav Yitzchak Yosef? You could be mekel. Now, the minhag I think in Klal Yisrael is we stay away from this. That's what it appears. So I'm not going to tell anybody to do this. I would say lechatchila, maybe don't do this. But from the sugya, it seems that this really is not a problem. But once again, if the minhag is to stay away from this, I would advise we might as well stay away from this. But as you go somewhere and they have one of these semi-Mechalel Shabbos chevra, classic Masorti in Eretz Yisrael type of guy pouring the wine, it's really not a problem. You don't need to start bashing them on to the kashrus agencies, etc. It's actually really not. There's much bigger issues out there, because it's really okay from the sugya. Now, what about? Oh, so I feel like I might have just said a lot of things. I just want to make sure I got this clear. Let me go over this for a second. We said that moving around the closed bottle, fine. It doesn't make a difference who did it. Drinking from the cup or the bottle, or touching the cup or the bottle, is a problem, no matter who did it. If it is an open bottle that the guy touched the bottle, or even lifted the bottle in place, it is okay, all shitas. If the open bottle was moved, so in the mechaber, it would be a problem to drink that. According to the Ramah, you'd be allowed to drink it b'makom hefsid, which we discussed, and by a category 2, Christian or Arab, which are the more common cases, it would be allowed. If the goy actually poured the wine, so if it was a category 1 Oived Avodah Zarah, it is a problem. If it is a category 2 Christian, so we said it's machlokes taz versus shach. L'maisa we're mekel like the shach. There's makom to be machmir like the taz. By an Arab who poured the wine is mutter. And certainly, semi-Mechalel Shabbos that poured the wine, the bottle is mutter. And I want to point out, we said there's a makom lahachmir like the taz by a Christian that pours the wine. However, the bottle, we're going to be makel for the bottle. Whereas usually, for example, when the Avodah Zarah pours the cup of wine, we're going to be asa the bottle as well, because there's a stream from the cup connected directly up the bottle. We'll only say that by when the Avodah Zarah pours the wine. We will not say that when the Christian pours the wine. Okay, now what if the guy pouring it? We said the reason why koiche is more mekel, the bottle is more mekel is it's koiche. What if you're wearing gloves? Sometimes you have these fancy waiters with the white gloves. Moshe Weinstein says it doesn't help one iota. That's a chatzitza, but it's not a davar acher. Okay, what about if the guy opens the fridge and there was an open bottle in the fridge, and he shaked it, or he was a mamash Avodah Zarah that moved it? How do we treat that wine? So Rav Vosner, and I saw also the Star case say, we treat that as okay, no problem. If a guy moves it, we say it is fine, it is okay. Because it has to be intentional. And this isn't, I'm really quoting Rav Vosner in the Star K, but it's actually pretty much a mefurish Shulchan Aruch that unintentional movement does not aser the wine. Now, what about the case, which is very common, which we did not discuss? And I want to be clear, I was talking the whole time when you saw exactly what the guy did. Now I'm going to discuss a different case, which is very common, which you didn't see what the guy did. Somebody left the guy in the house by themselves with a closed bottle of wine, but not sealed. Something that you could pick the cork up and put the cork back down. How do we treat that wine? So actually, even if that guy was an Arab, an atheist, a Mechalel Shabbos, even if it was not a guy, it was a Yid, it was a Mechalel Shabbos, we treat that as being a problem. Why? If the guy was there by himself, we don't know what the guy did. The guy might have touched it and created an isser, and therefore we have to treat it as asr. Because once again, until now we're talking about when you saw exactly what the guy did. But if you didn't see what the guy did, then and the guy was left alone with the wine, is a problem unless the wine is double sealed. Has some form of seal that you will see whether it's tampered with. It's tamper proof. Then you could drink the wine. But if it's not double sealed, we don't know what the guy did, and it is a problem. The Taz says nowadays you don't need double sealed. One seal is enough because Avodah Zarah is not so common these days, but still it has to be the type of seal that you could tell whether it's been tampered with. Not just a cork, which you cannot tell whether it's been tampered with. Now, if you leave the guy and the guy knows that he's not allowed to touch the wine, and you're a Yotze V'nichnas, you're the type that the guy really doesn't know you might be back in 5 minutes. It's not that he knows your schedule and you're off to work for 8 hours, but rather he really doesn't know your schedule, he really doesn't know you might be back in 5 minutes. So then there's a heter of Yotze V'nichnas, and the wine is still good. One last point to discuss is a lot of people are familiar with this concept that we don't let the goyim look at the wine. So we should know from a pure halachic standpoint, from a pure Shulchan Aruch standpoint, there is no issue with a guy looking at the wine. Definitely in the Hasidish world and a lot of the Haimish world, we're machmir on this. It's based on the Shloah Kodesh who says this idea of the guy not looking at the wine. If somebody has that minhag, gesund hate, and fine, your father has the minhag, continue, fine, it's a nice idea. But that's not halacha. Halacha says there's no problem for the guy to look at the wine. That's in Yaynom from the Shloah Kodesh, and that isn't a Shulchan Aruch Dikadin. That's not something that if it's not your minhag, you certainly don't need to pick it up, and have an amazing week.